This is Gerald Johan van Waas. In this series of videos, I would like to provide you with examples that shows you how every letter combination that is provided into a word that we use is not randomly there, but it is meaningful. And the combinations of letters, they really describe the objects. How it comes that this is meaningful is another chapter, which I can also explain if you really want that I give it a little bit more attention. But the order that we make in our focusing upon an object makes a choice of certain letters that also describes what we are talking about. Why it is different in different languages has also reasons. These reasons are also described in some of my books. But I use the language English most of the time because this is the common, mostly used language, and it provides you an insight to use the theory upon English and upon the same language again and again, so that you can also realize how it works also in this language and why this preference is there. We have a preference in English to focus mainly on the objects themselves, to have it as objective as possible, as physical as possible. And if that doesn't work, okay, we see how we need to adapt our focus. And when we really losing its focus, okay, we try to find context so that in the end we will find it. That's how English works. That's how the focus of English works, and with a certain preference of certain letters to make that happen, so that we can experiment with it and understand each other based upon one opinion against another. They will try to find a balance from one opinion to another, and in that way we have a whole series of letters and words that are related with that way of conversations that appear and that happen to be in the usage of how we think in English. Okay, let's go to focus upon neck. How do we recognize the letter choices in the word neck? And I will show these emphasizes there. You have a theory there which is helping me, which is the resume, which you see there at the right, and some books that could also prepare you to get used to the automated logic to organize itself with letters geometrically in the past, or with several ways to look at it. And of course, the first thing we always need to do is when we pick out letters is that we see how much we can actually already focus upon the thing that we are describing. And in each choice of letters, it is a kind of balance. The balance of three, which I always say. And the first general balance of three is actually that one of how well can we focus upon the object, how well do we see it, how objective is it, how physical is it. It is then either, so it is in three categories, the general categories are here described. So it is either that we can have a very strong focus, which can direct us further and we can use it immediately, and this focus will have straight positions, just pointed out positions. If that is not possible, we might be distracted by some elements which needs follow-up, so that we check it, okay, where does it lead us to, where some conditions of the general conditions are changed, or we can no longer base ourselves purely upon the straight positions. Or we are so distracted by all the elements that we see there that it will become challenging to find our focus, and we have to find a certain estimated balance in the end by organizing what we see and see where the balance then in this case is really lying. So for the neck, it is a bit more complicated to say, okay, what kind of focus do we have? Do we have a very strong focus? Do we immediately see where the point is? In a way, it is a focus in space, but do we immediately see it? It is a spatial focus, so that is true. So it is a focus in space, in physical space, but in the neck, okay, it's already behind our back a little bit. Is it really a steady focus? It is slightly hidden, but we can point it into a point, but that point is also a movable part. So it is a kind of mixture already of what this is. So there's a spatial focus involved, but there's also a point involved that is actually involved in movement as well. So it is a bit both. So I have to describe it actually as, yes, it is a point in space, but the point I'm describing has a movable part, and that's all part of the foundation that I'm looking at, and that is actually well described into a certain letter. This focus is actually, so it has that focus in space, and it has also some movement or a changeable position. This changeable position is how the material itself is changing position, and it's also changing position in a way. It is, if you think about it, the neck, okay, you can move it left, right, or you can move it up. It is a movable part. The movable parts are in the green area, but it is about space still, so it's a focus in space. So that means we have the first category of the changeable focuses. So we can choose between D, N, and Y. D is when we can really start from there to make a movement. N says, okay, parts or the material itself is able to move or could move. And Y is like, okay, we don't really say to where it is moving, but we know it has a certain, we are more focusing upon that destiny. So what will fit most with these three options is, of course, the number, the N, which is about movable parts in space. The next letter after N is E. E in its own is actually about moving, changing, related with time frames also on, so that something could move or is moving. The C and the K is that C are both about breaking points. It's that breaking point moment. So here the K says that it not only is for moving up, but it can also, it is just in that moving up, it is a breaking point, or it acts as a breaking point. If we compare that to where the neck lies, we can realize where that point is a little bit off center as the N is. And it's even better visible if you see it from the side. It's a bit off center. It is a breaking point, and the upward conditions of N can also better be broken apart, so that you have that upward position, which lies into that breaking point, and that describes actually the neck very well as also a physical orientation. So N is about a physical orientation, but about movement that can happen there with its material, so that's correct. E is about movement, about changes, about timings, So it is related with it because it's not a steady point. So it is a point which you can realize, especially, or sense it especially when you start to move it, not necessarily upwards, but if you move it upwards, you realize it even more clearly. So it is like the C from the chin and the K from the breaking point and the end, and then you know, yes, there I realize my word neck, and that's why the choices of letters that describe it are well chosen. Hope this brought you also closer to understanding how letters hang together and describe actually the object or subject that is intended to describe with it. Thanks again for watching. Bye.